Usually when we sit down for these deep dives, we're looking at things that are, well, they're pretty far out. Flying cars in 2035, fusion power, that sort of thing.
All very hypothetical.
Exactly. But today, we're looking at something that is happening, right now, as in 48 hours ago?
It's the definition of breaking news.
Yeah.
But not the 24-hour cable news cycle kind. This is the history book kind of breaking news.
I'm talking about Davos. January 20th, 2026. The Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, he gets up on stage.
Right.
And you expect the usual diplomatic talk, we value our partners, global cooperation, all of that.
The standard boilerplate speech, everyone claps, they go to lunch.
Instead, he drops a bomb. He says, and I'm quoting here, "We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition."
And the room gives him a standing ovation.
A standing ovation.
And that ovation is the real signal. It tells you that European and Canadian leaders, they're not just worried about a breakup with the U.S., they're practically cheering for it.
The post-1945 order is over.
Terminated.
So everyone in the media is panicking about this, but you brought in a document that suggests the U.S. isn't just sitting around mourning the relationship.
Not at all. We have a confidential policy proposal. It's dated this month, January 2026. It's called the Atlantic Horizon Initiative.
Okay.
And if you think the talk at Davos was heated, this plan is something else. It's basically a blueprint for Ellis Island 2.0.
But on steroids.
Massive steroids. This isn't about smoothing things over with Europe. It's a framework to aggressively recruit, and some people would say poach.
Poach is the word.
12 to 15 million Europeans. And another 2 to 3 million Canadians, all in the next 5 years.
Okay, I just have to pause on that number. 18 million people.
It's a staggering number.
That's the entire population of the Netherlands. It's like adding a new New York City and a new Los Angeles to the map in 5 years.
It sounds impossible. But the mission here is, it's multi-layered. This deep dive is going to look at how this plan aims to solve America's labor shortage, revitalize the Rust Belt, secure AI dominance, and this is the wildest part.
Go on.
Avert a financial war by draining the talent out of the very countries threatening the U.S.
It sounds like a movie plot. But before we get to the how, and I want to get to the how, we have to understand the why. What happened to trigger something this extreme?
The context is what the document calls a world transformed. And the hostilities, they're not theoretical anymore. You have European leaders, Bardella, Farage, calling U.S. policy commercial blackmail.
Even Macron.
And the European Parliament just suspended the U.S.-EU trade agreement.
But that's not the real threat, is it?
No. The real threat, and the one this document seems terrified of, is financial warfare. It's the sell America threat.
Okay, break that down. The document mentions something like $8 trillion. $8
to $10 trillion, yeah. That's how much European governments, pension funds, central banks, that's how much they hold in U.S. assets. Bonds, stocks, treasuries.
That sounds like a lot.
It's almost twice as much as the rest of the world combined. And the document quotes a strategist at Deutsche Bank who's openly talking about the weaponization of capital.
Weaponization of capital. What does that actually mean for, someone listening right now?
Well, think of it like this. The U.S. government runs on debt. It sells treasury bonds to pay its bills.
Okay.
If Europe suddenly decides to dump all those bonds at once, it's like everyone on your street trying to sell their house on the same day.
The price crashes.
The price crashes. To get anyone to buy new bonds, the U.S. would have to skyrocket interest rates. So your mortgage goes up, car loans go up, business lending just stops.
You tank the economy overnight.
Exactly. And we're already seeing the signals. The dollar is falling, treasury yields are spiking, and gold is over $4,700 an ounce. The fear gauge is flashing red.
So the financial gun is loaded, and then you have Canada.
The Canadian pivot. And it's very specific. Prime Minister Carney didn't just give a speech. He went to Beijing to talk about tariffs on Chinese EVs.
Right. And they joined that EU defense fund.
The Safe Defense Fund, yeah.
Yeah.
A 150 billion euro fund that explicitly excludes the United States.
And there's a trade bloc.
A potential one. A bloc of 1.5 billion people that leaves the U.S. on the outside looking in.
Okay. So the U.S. is being isolated. The alliance is dead. And this Atlantic Horizon Initiative is the counterpunch.
It is. But instead of sanctions or tanks, the weapon is demographics.
Demographics.
This is where the strategy gets really Machiavellian. The document argues that Europe is in a demographic death spiral, and the U.S. plan is to accelerate it.
Okay, let's look at the math. The document talks about something called the dependency ratio. How should we think about that?
It's pretty simple. Imagine a seesaw. On one side, you have the workers, the people paying taxes.
Right.
On the other side, you have the retirees, the people drawing pensions.
You bet.
In the EU right now, for every one pensioner, there are only 2.22 workers balancing them out. That's already considered critical status. The seesaw is barely level.
2.22. That doesn't sound like a lot of wiggle room.
It isn't. And this is the collapse threshold the model predicts. If the U.S. pulls away those 12 to 15 million young workers aged 18 to 35, that ratio drops to 2.06.
I have to ask, is the difference between 2.22 and 2.06, is that really a catastrophe? It sounds like a rounding error.
It sounds small, but in demographics, that's a cliff. Because you aren't just losing random people, you're losing the super contributors.
The healthy, educated people who pay the most taxes and use the least health care.
Exactly. You're not recruiting 80-year-olds. You're taking the entire tax base.
So the tax burden on everyone left behind just skyrockets.
Right. Which makes the remaining young people ask, why am I staying here to pay 60% in taxes?
And that just makes more people want to leave. It's a feedback loop.
A death spiral. It crashes housing markets. It forces tax hikes. The source says a 3 to 5 year shock like this delivers 20 years of economic decline. It just overwhelms the system.
So the U.S. strategy is basically, your house is on fire, so we're going to steal your fire extinguishers.
Or from their perspective, your house is on fire, and we're offering your kids a ladder.
Which brings us to the pull, because it's one thing to want 18 million people. It's another thing to get them to actually move. What's this irresistible life upgrade?
They're calling it the freedom visa. And the core idea is to just eliminate all the friction.
How?
If you are under 40 from the EU, UK, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand, you get an uncapped guaranteed green card.
Instant green card, no lottery, no waiting 10 years.
Instant permanent residency. And you can get citizenship in just 3 years if you settle in what they call a revitalization zone.
Which is the Rust Belt.
It's exactly. This is the Rust Belt homestead part. They're proposing a $50,000 federal renovation grant and a 0% down payment mortgage if you buy in, say, Ohio, Michigan, or Pennsylvania.
0% down. That sounds aggressive. A little like 2008, no. How do they justify that kind of risk?
Well, the document argues the asset prices are completely different, and it frames it as a wealth transfer.
What do you mean?
The comparison they make is if you're a 28-year-old in Paris or London, your reality is rent forever. You're probably never going to own a home.
That's true. A tiny flat in London is out of reach for most people.
But a classic 4-bedroom house in Cleveland, maybe $150,000. Then you add the $50K grant and you add the tax sweetener.
Oh, right, the tax holiday, the biggest piece of the puzzle.
A 5-year federal income tax exemption
Yeah.
for a European paying, 40, 50% in taxes. Moving to the U.S. to pay 0 federal tax is like a 20 or 30% raise. And that's on top of already higher U.S. salaries.
You call it a mathematical no-brainer. And yeah, it's hard to argue with that logic.
And they're removing one more huge barrier, the qualification shield.
This is huge. I know people who've moved to the U.S. and couldn't work in their field for years because of licensing.
This proposal wipes that away. Total credential reciprocity, a German master electrician, a French engineer, they're automatically licensed. You land at the airport, you can start work on Monday.
So it's easy to get in, they give you a house, a huge raise, and you can work immediately. It's a full court press.
It is. And the strategy for Canada is even more targeted.
The Northern Front.
The document calls Canada the easiest target. The cultural friction is 0.
And the housing crisis there is extreme.
A bubble. 12 to 14 times price to income. A $1.3 million condo in Toronto versus a $150,000 house in Pittsburgh.
And the mortgage structure is different, right?
Massively. In Canada, you renew every 5 years. You're always exposed to interest rate risk. In the U.S., you get that 30-year fixed rate. That's huge stability for a family.
But Canada has those golden handcuffs. People are tied to their savings, their pensions.
And this plan has a key for every lock. First, a tax credit to offset Canada's exit tax. The U.S. government literally pays for you to leave.
That is unbelievably aggressive.
It shows how valuable they think these people are. Second, they'd let Canadians roll their tax-free savings account, their TFSA, directly into a U.S. Roth IRA. They even enhanced the limit to let them catch up.
They've thought of everything to drain that talent pool. They're aiming for what, 2 to 3 million Canadians?
Which is 25% of that entire age demographic. It would fundamentally change the country.
But where do all these people go? And what jobs do they do?
This is where the plan gets industrial. The goal is to solve what they call the missing middle problem.
What's the missing middle?
The U.S. is great at producing PhDs, and it has plenty of general labor. But it lacks that highly skilled technical class, the mechatronics people, the process
The
engineers.
people Germany's apprenticeship system creates? The ones who can actually fix the robots that build the cars.
Exactly. The document says this expertise cannot be trained domestically in the required time frame, so they plan to import it, and they want to match specific nationalities to industries.
Okay, give me the breakdown.
Germans to Michigan for automotive and robotics, the Swiss and Dutch to Pennsylvania for the semiconductor supply chains, and Scandinavians to West Virginia for green steel and hydrogen.
It's industrial matchmaking on a continental scale.
It is. And that brings us to the political cell.
Yeah.
Because immigration is the third rail of American politics. How do you get everyone to agree on this?
Yeah, that seems impossible. But the document claims it has bipartisan appeal.
And the argument is clever. For conservatives, the pit is simple. We win, they lose. It's a strategic victory. And these are culturally compatible, high-skill immigrants who are coming to work.
Oh, okay, I can see that playing well. What's the progressive pitch?
It's a humanitarian refuge for a lost generation. It provides workers for the green energy transition. And it's urban renewal for the Rust Belt, but without gentrification.
How is it not gentrification?
Because they're moving into empty houses. Cities like Cleveland and Detroit were built for populations twice their current size. The infrastructure's there, the houses are there, they're just empty. You're repopulating ghost neighborhoods.
Invitation rather than invasion.
Right. And there's a huge tech imperative here, too, around the AI.
We hear the U.S. has the compute, the chips. What's missing?
The physical infrastructure. AI isn't just software. It needs massive data centers, complex cooling, new power grids. Every AI lab is talent-constrained, not on coders, but on the people who can build this stuff. The electricians, the HVAC specialists.
And there's a point about regulatory arbitrage.
It's crucial. The EU is moving towards safety and control. The U.S. is doubling down on growth. So the pitch is, if you want to push the frontier, come to America. If you want to fill out forms, stay in Brussels.
So it all creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Talent comes in, productivity goes up.
Which attracts more capital, funds more AI, and critically, it negates that sell America financial threat from the beginning.
How does it do that?
If the U.S. economy is booming because of 18 million new taxpayers and homeowners, U.S. Treasury bonds become the best investment in the world again. If Europe sells them, they just lose money.
It stabilizes everything by making America the only real growth story in town. So, to wrap up, why the rush? The document mentions a 5-year window.
They believe these geopolitical and demographic trends will lock in by 2030. If they don't act now, Europe's decline becomes permanent, and the U.S. misses its chance.
And they frame this whole thing as the ethical choice, which is a bold claim for a plan to gut your allies.
They do. The conclusion argues this is the humane alternative to armed conflict or financial war. We aren't sending tanks. We aren't sanctioning food. We're simply offering people a choice.
The invisible hand of the market doing the work of an army.
Precisely. And the document leaves us with this final provocative thought. In a world where the old alliance is over, is the competitive poaching of a nation's youth an act of hostility or an act of salvation?
That is going to stick with me. Salvation. It really depends on which side of the ocean you're on.
Absolutely. If you're a 25-year-old leaving a failing system for a house and a future, it's a lifeboat. It's salvation. If you're the government left behind trying to balance the books with no taxpayers, it's an act of war.
It's just, it redefines what conflict looks like in the 21st century. It's not over land anymore. It's over people.
The most valuable resource there is.
Well, keep your eyes on the news, everyone. If you see a bill for a freedom visa pop up, or you start seeing ads for cheap houses in Ohio, you'll know exactly what the playbook is.
And for our listeners in Europe and Canada, maybe start updating those resumes.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.